This is a quick video explaining short assignment 3. Recall that in short assignment 1, we worked on devising and identifying parts of hypotheses, the core part of making predictions about the research phenomena in which we're interested. In short assignment 2, we worked on finding an acceptable definition, that is conceptualization, and an existing measure, that is operationalization, of a single variable. Of course, we learned that in both surveys and experiments, we need to locate well-validated, reliable measures to be successful. In short assignment 3, you're going to be asked to think further about experiments. In part 1, you'll see a series of lay non-scientific experiments. What I want you to do is to watch these clips in full and identify the independent variable, that is the variable being manipulated, and the dependent variable, or the variable observed, to see whether changes in the independent variable affected it. In part 2, you'll be asked to create your own experimental design. I would encourage you to keep it as simple as possible, as the best experiments are well controlled and don't introduce additional confounds. So you might be wondering to yourself, why do I have to keep doing these short assignments? The short answer is that these short assignments are adding tools to your methodological toolbox, so you can leave this class after this session or semester and independently perform a small-scale quantitative and or qualitative study, which I think could help you in your future career, even if you're not going to become a professor or a researcher. Specifically for this short assignment, I'm going to ask you to view a social experiment and identify the independent and dependent variables for each. My hope is that this will help you to start seeing the social experiments happening around you in your everyday life. The second part will help you to practice devising experiments. So you can tell that the main objective of this particular short assignment is to get you to start thinking like an experimentalist. And why should you care about experiments? In short, experiments run our lives. For instance, if you decided to get any of the approved vaccines for COVID-19, those were vetted by scientific experiments. But you may be thinking, I'm not going to become a virologist at this point in my life. Well, it's not only in the hard sciences that we conduct experiments. Think about if you were managing an HEB and wanted to increase sales on cereals. So you wanted to run an experiment to see whether they sell better on the second shelf or whether moving them to the third shelf makes a difference in sales. That's an experiment. Or maybe you were thinking it might be better to communicate messages to your employees using emails or instant messaging. So you chose to communicate with some using one modality and others with another modality to check whether it makes a difference in work productivity. That's an experiment too. Experiments are fundamentally important to our lives, so it's better and important that you have this tool at your disposal. In short assignment number 3, I want you to take away 4 different ideas on which I will be grading this assignment. First, I want you to be able to quickly and correctly identify the cause and effect variables in an experiment. For the cause variable, that's the independent variable being manipulated, and the effect is the dependent variable being measured. Second, I want you to consider how we can manipulate an independent variable in an experiment. Third, I want you to be able to correctly articulate the idea of random assignment in designing an experiment. And finally, I want you to be able to come up with a true experimental design. So let's try to dive a bit deeper into the steps of this assignment. The first step is to view the 3 social experiments that I provided to you using the YouTube links in the assignment description. The YouTube videos are of a show that conducts social experiments in the community called What Would You Do? For these social experiments, I want you to view the videos in full and identify the independent variable and the dependent variable. Focus specifically on major variables, not minor ones like changes in clothes or specific actors that were probably made for feasibility's sake. An additional task is that I want you to identify whether the independent variable and dependent variable are nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. Here are some helpful tips when trying to identify the independent and dependent variable in the 3 clips. First, you'll want to ask yourself, for identifying the independent variable, what is the major thing that changed? In other words, what is the cause of this experiment? Second, you'll want to ask yourself, when identifying the dependent variable, what is the variable they're observing, to see if changes in the independent variable affected it. Here's some guidance. Each clip is an experiment with 2 manipulated conditions. For reference, in clip 1, the debate over the border wall, the first condition happens before the 7-minute 49-second mark, and the second condition occurs after the 7-minute 49-second mark. In clip 2, the harassment of the mother and child over racial disparities, the first condition happens before the 3-minute 38-second mark, and the second condition occurs after that mark. In clip 3, on body shaming in the gym, the first condition happens before the 4-minute 58-second mark, and the second condition occurs after that mark. One other important thing to keep in mind is that the dependent variables will generally be similar or the same across the 3 experiments, and that relates to the overall thesis of the show. After identifying the independent and dependent variable in each clip, I want you to take it a step further and tell me how each variable is scaled, whether it's nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. This should be reviewed to you, but a nominal variable is one in which the levels are named but have no inherent ranking or order. Examples might include ethnicity, where there's no inherent ranking between, say, Mexicans and French, and states in the United States. An ordinal variable has labeled levels in them, but the distance or interval between the levels is not proportionate. An example might be the most popular fast food restaurants in a given neighborhood. It may be that Whataburger, Taco Bell, and Chick-fil-A respectively are the 3 most popular fast food restaurants, but it doesn't mean that the quote-unquote distance in popularity between Whataburger and Taco Bell is the same as the distance between Taco Bell and Chick-fil-A, so this would be considered an ordinal variable. An interval variable is one that has labeled or named levels, has an order, and has proportionate intervals between the levels. A measurement of an object in inches or centimeters would be an example of an interval level of measurement, as is an IQ test. Here, it's important to note that this measurement does not have a true 0 point. In the example I gave of measuring the length of an object with a ruler or tape measure, it can't have a true 0 point, or the object simply wouldn't exist. The final type of variable is ratio. Here it has all the qualities of the other variables, but it has a true 0 point. Time that it takes something to occur, or number of bills in a wallet, would be an example of ratio variables. The final step in this short assignment is to devise a true or classical experiment based on a causal hypothesis you come up with. The causal hypothesis for this experiment can come from short assignment 1, or it can be something new you thought of for this specific assignment. A couple of very important things must be present in your write-up. For the example located in the assignment description, I described an experiment testing the hypothesis that time spent on the internet causes loneliness. You'll need to pay attention to a couple of important things in this write-up to be successful on your own. First, you need to mention that the study is based on randomization, the hallmark of any true experiment. Second, you need to explain that you randomly assign participants to the manipulated independent variable conditions. You must have a minimum of 2 conditions, but there's no maximum number. Remember that when creating these conditions, you want to manipulate the independent variable and only the independent variable. You want to avoid introducing any confounding variables that could potentially lead to changes in the dependent variable. Finally, you'll want to explain how you measured the dependent variable. Including all of these components will earn you the most number of points. That's pretty much all the information I want to impart on you for this short assignment. This short assignment reflects the next step in becoming an independent quantitative social scientific researcher. This is simply one more tool that you'll have in your toolbox when leaving this course, which I hope will make you more marketable and research conscious. If you have difficulties coming up with an experiment, or you're not quite sure if you identified the correct independent or dependent variables, please don't hesitate to reach out to me for help. As always, I hope you have a great experience with this assignment, and I hope you find it worth your time. Have a great week and keep in touch.